Hey, everybody. This is the first or second, I guess, happy hour of 2021. Um, Shelby's made some amazing
Hmm.
progress, had some ups and downs, and today we're just diving into some more stuff. More of it, I think today is going to be about motivation to keep going. Shelby,
Uh,
fire away.
Honestly, it totally is. Like, I was thinking about it. I'm like, this probably isn't. Yeah, I was thinking, like, this isn't going to be probably the best one, but at the same time, I think it will because this is something that everyone faces going through this, especially for me. It's like, well, a lot of people, you're on your own. You have your vision and you're trying to, keep progressing forward. And then you have those weeks where you didn't write anything on your calendar and obviously didn't accomplish the things you actually wanted. So yeah, I think uh the big thing that I just need to, like, I guess just like get back on track is my dilemma right now.
I've been there. I mean, every time, like I use the full focus planner, and you have like the three big things you have to accomplish for the week. The weeks you use it,
Hmm.
you get a lot done, but the weeks that you don't, or if you
Hmm.
skip a couple days, you start
Hmm.
getting behind on, moving those rocks. But give me an update. I know earlier in the week, I think it was like last Friday, you sent me a text that said, hold on, I'll go back and see what the text said.
Oh no, are you calling me out?
No, it was a really good text. I'm just trying to find it because
Oh
you're super jacked up, and it took us a week to schedule this because of
yeah,
homeschooling.
okay, totally.
Um,
Yep. That's why, like, when I first told you about it, I was talking to the my one friend that wants to help me with this whole venture, and we were discussing it and just like, throwing ideas around. And I'm definitely that person where I have the ideas, like I like big dreamer, big visions, and then it's kind of like the implementing is where I like get stuck and stopped right in my tracks. But when I messaged you, I was fully in that mindset of like the visions and the dreams and what I can see happening and what I want to happen. And then yeah, like a week went by and I feel like I was like up here and then like every day it just went down, and then we decided to have this call and I'm like, no, I'm not even in that same mindset of just of that amped up and ready to just like tackle the world.
that's honestly, that's why it's so important. Like anytime I think someone, especially like in that case, if you have an idea, take a small action. Like do
Hmm.
one thing with the idea.
Yeah.
Like everyone waits, but like when you have those moments of genius or like that passion, the best thing you can do, it's kind of like if you feel like working out, go work out.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because if you wait 5 minutes, you're going to be like, I'm going to go eat potato chips instead,
Yeah, you
or I'm going to
start
watch Netflix.
yeah, you question it too much. And that's literally what I wrote down because I was just trying to figure out, like I like to write stuff down and figure out just myself a bit more to learn how or what's going on. Like, why am I feeling this way and feeling stuck? And I just was thinking, I'm like, well, it's ironic, but I wrote down that I think that I'm just thinking too much and not just doing. Like, I'm thinking about the things, but I'm not actually just like before when I was doing really well, I was just telling myself, I'm like, just do the thing, just keep doing the thing. And I mean, it's oversaid, but literally take action. Like, just keep doing it, work on it, don't think about it, but just like you said, like a little bit, just do one little thing and don't think about it, just do it. And I was doing that and it was good. And then this week, I'm
Not
thinking
so
too
much.
much.
What was
Yeah.
the vision? Like, what was the things that
Okay.
stuck in your mind when it was Katie,
So
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
so she told me a while ago, and I've seen it kind of a little bit, but a documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma.
Yep.
And so she told me about it, and I was like, yeah, I should watch that and just kind of because I knew what it was about, obviously, but I didn't really know the whole context of the documentary and what they're getting across. So after I watched that, me and her chatted about it and just we're bouncing ideas of how we can be more intentional online and how we as like using the platforms that are so taken advantage of in today's society, how maybe making we can hustle not just about doing what everyone else does. And I'm always kind of been that way where I'm like, I don't want to follow suit a lot. Like, I know some things work, things work and people do them because they work. But at the same time, I've always been like the opposite mindset. Like for everything, I've always felt that way, where I see things happening and people doing stuff, and I'm like, I want to do it differently. Like I don't like following the trends, and I'm like, I want to make it different. So after watching the documentary, we're just chatting about how We Can Hustle can use the platforms just a lot more with intent, and not be like everyone else, to make people feel bad about themselves and not where they want to be because they're watching influencers accomplishing everything. And then, there's just so much comparison and negativity with that. So I was thinking, I'm like, well, imagine you had your own platform where it was specifically for what you like, your audience. And even talking with you, and I know, like, to me, I always, like, I was questioning Facebook groups. Like, I understand their purpose, but even stuff like that, I'm like, I don't want to just like, oh, like a free Facebook group. Like, I totally understand the purpose and how valuable it can be. At the same time, in my head, like, that trigger went off where I'm like, I don't want to do what everyone else does because it's like, it's just a common thing. And I was thinking, like, and also just getting off the Facebook, like getting off that platform. I'm like, what if you made your own? And like, what if you almost had your own app? And it goes to a lot of the things like that I've been bouncing ideas. Like, I remember I told you, like, imagine having, for me anyways, like a hotline, because my industry I'm targeting is so big. So that was, my one big idea of like where I could see things. So I'm like, if I had, let's say, an app that had all those categories tied together, like I could have the training, I could have the fitness, I could have like a hotline, because I know there's so many people that I could potentially get on board with that, like actually have experts all in one spot. And that was kind of my idea at the moment. Like, I'm getting more fired up talking about it now that I'm getting the refresher, but that's kind of like the context of what I was thinking about.
So there's two things that I will say, like, are foundational principles. One,
Mm-hmm.
like the fact that you journal and document like those ideas and you keep those ideas, like most people have it and let it go. Like for
Mm-hmm.
me, I always have ideas in the shower, which I think
Yeah.
that happens to a lot of people.
I wish
And
I
there are
had like
like
a notebook.
oh yeah, there are markers called aqua notes, which you can actually write like on the shower wall. Um, but even like I keep my phone like not far from the shower. I usually yell to Siri if it's actually a good idea.
Yeah. Make a note.
Um, but one of the things, like building an app, getting people an app, that is an amazing idea. All I would do then is say, okay, that's the end goal.
Mm-hmm.
What do I have to map back to get to that state?
Yep.
The reason I think Facebook groups can be good is it's a good testing ground.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can build the community knowing like full well your plans to leave that. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, within the Entrepreneur Action Academy, we have the paid Facebook group, but
Mm-hmm.
then the mastermind is in Slack,
Right.
because that's like those are the people who are going to get the most attention, the direct response, like kind of like the hotline. So, for you, as an example, you may start with a Facebook group. You might use a Slack channel, like, or Slack as the tool, and then move to Circle.io as a platform that's not
Mm-hmm.
like Facebook, and then you may develop your own app. And there's really cool tools like Bumble. Um, it's an app building software. So you can start today, like take action and say, like, hey, I'm building this community with the intention of launching an app. But to start, this is ground zero. This is where we're going to
Mm-hmm.
build the community and start fostering the relationships, and then move to the app as you grow.
Right.
But the last thing I want to see someone, especially in your case, like you have come so far with what the business looks like. You have
Mm-hmm.
people like ready to pay, like they're ready to join. I would
Yes.
start, learn the content you're delivering. The
Mm-hmm.
content, like the content's the core piece. That's the value. The
Mm-hmm.
mechanism or medium, that's just a distribution device or delivery method. Whether it's an app, whether it's
Okay.
Facebook group, whether it's Slack, that's just the
Mm-hmm.
mechanism that gives the content.
Mm-hmm.
So I like, trust me, I agree. There's a lot of volatility. I was in a mastermind where the founder's account got shut down. So he couldn't come and contribute to the Facebook group. He had to use one of like his staff to come
Oh.
communicate. So like there is a huge risk in doing that. There's small ways and things you can do to protect it, but I mean, at some point, I think most people should get into their own platform.
Mm-hmm.
From like what we've learned through the stuff, even with Apex, like we looked at switching people out into another platform, the engagement just drops.
Really?
Like people are on social media platforms, they're there.
Yeah.
And Facebook is trying to make a switch to be more community focused and less negative. So, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, even if you look at like if you're involved in any communities or any groups on Facebook, you'll notice that in your notifications, it will put preference towards group posts. And
True.
you'll notice even more recently, like it'll put preference towards questions from group posts.
Yeah.
So in your case, like they're getting away from the negative spin a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So if in your group somebody were to say, hey, I'm trying to pick between this saddle or that saddle, it's going to
Mm-hmm.
push it out to your group members and index it above everything else.
Okay.
So for now, it'll help you, but I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't wait to build an app to not start
Right. Yeah.
because you just need to get the engagement, the community, and go from
Yeah.
there. And they
And
may
that's
tell you, like, no, we don't want an app, Slack's fine, or some other tool.
yeah. Like yeah, and I think like you just said, it's just the tool that you're using to share the content, but that's not the main goal or the main thing that you're doing. It's like delivering it. And then I guess you kind of choose later on how exactly or like the best option to give them the information.
Yeah,
Right. So that's where I was
100%.
thinking like the app, because like I do have the Facebook group and it does well. And like when I post stuff like they're like I feel like I don't need to test it because I know like I feel that because like I am my customer and I think it is something that I've seen these people use a lot. Like as a horseback rider, they want something convenient in their pocket, like on their phone when they're riding. I was even thinking you could have like a added thing, like an all-in-one type tool. So even tracking, like tracking your rides, like there's apps where it's like the bike ones where it shows the course you went, like all the roads, how long your ride was, your like your speed and all that stuff. And I was like, imagine if you had it all right there. And then, you would have the free content and then maybe the paid. And I was just trying to figure out like it still is the same questions I've had with starting a course, like all the same type of
Mm-hmm.
things that you have to think about of, what are you giving away for free? What do you want people to pay for? And like, what is the value there? But yeah, and I was just kind of thinking that might be the best idea later on. But again, like you said, for now, it's still, I want to focus on the course, getting it going because it's been a while and I feel like I'm like right there, but there's just like the couple more like technical things that are just totally stopping me. And then it's just, making me like lose the momentum type thing.
That's so the technical thing, and this goes back to like the original question of an app versus Facebook group.
Mm-hmm.
When you're starting, you have to remove as many barriers as you can.
Mm-hmm.
So when you hit a technical challenge, just ask the question like, how can I simplify this and avoid that?
Mm-hmm.
Because you and I were talking the day before the webinar that we did, like the big
Mm-hmm.
app sumo webinar, and you were just like, so you just didn't. I was like, no, I don't have time to go figure out a huge technical problem. So I got the simplest tool to solve the problem for now,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can build something more complex. So when you hit those roadblocks, just write them down and figure out, okay, what's the fastest workaround to get to the next point. Like if I need to launch a course tomorrow, I'm going to start with a Facebook community and I will probably find a simple like course tool.
Yeah.
So if you're getting stuck with something, one, you have our access to our whole team. So when you're stuck, you just need to tell me and we'll make sure they push it through.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but just work through that. I think the app idea you have is genius.
Thank you.
But when you have like the ideas, I would prioritize a number of things. Like one, try to figure out what you're trying to help accomplish with people, like in your community.
Mm-hmm.
And then like what value or how does that help them the fastest? So for
Yeah.
now, like the fundamental trainings you're doing, the video reviews of people riding, like
Mm-hmm.
that gives them the feedback. The app would have like an incremental change. right? Like that would give them a data set.
Mm-hmm.
But it wouldn't be like, hey, like you're going to run this much faster because of the app. But the video, like you critiquing the video and how they make the turn,
Mm-hmm.
that will change their speed much faster.
Exactly.
Right.
And there's just, yeah. And even like when I was thinking about it at a race, I've even had that thought where, so I don't really have a coach and I've always been self-taught. I find stuff on the internet and try and figure out myself, just me working through it, like me, and then, just getting advice from other people. But I was thinking again, it's like I could have coaches on demand. Like if I had people that wanted, because I don't see it just as a me thing. Like, and that's kind of one problem that I think I've had, because Weekend Hustle is its own deal, but obviously I'm the only one working there. So it's all my
Yeah.
stuff. But eventually I'd like to branch that out where it's other people, like other professionals potentially that are going to give their time, or like the hotline thing. Like I know people, like, because people in the riding industry, like they're driving a lot. So what if they could sign up, kind of thing? Like they could volunteer their time to be a part of helping someone in need instantly, like almost a live, like if someone needs help, or again, like with the hotline aspect, because I know like some people that the one girl I interviewed did suicide and depression awareness. And I remember you saying how you have to be careful, like it needs to kind of still tie into the same like theme sort of. And but I was just thinking like how I could actually help her and help that cause is if I had a app and had a section of it where it was hotlines for that, and she could volunteer her time to help people. So if someone was feeling really down and wanted to talk to someone, instead of just using a generic hotline, they go on the app and they find someone that they can call instantly and they know they're going to answer, type thing. Like people can then volunteer
Yeah.
almost to help others. So it's not like, it almost becomes like its own working thing where like I've created it, but it's not just me being the person. It's like I can find other people that want to help as well, you know?
So that's a good opportunity. Like when you get into things like that, I would be looking for partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are people that have like those networks and that infrastructure set up.
Yeah.
Like, and mental health now especially is becoming more and more of a
Mm-hmm.
priority. But look at partnerships and look at existing business
Yeah.
models.
That's kind of where I feel.
Like
That's
the
like where I feel I'm at, like even getting Katie to help me. And then it's like I feel like even though
yeah,
it's not obviously making money, but I'm like I feel like I just need to like start almost building and getting those partnerships.
yeah. So one of the things, like you have a beginning point where you are today, you have a
Mm-hmm.
community. The endpoint's an app with all these
Mm-hmm.
features. But in order to get to the point where you have all these features, break it down to its simplest parts. So for example, you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
time tracking. Like, so time tracking in an app, can you build a Google spreadsheet to start? Because by the time you get to development of the app, you've got to know like, hey, what's the
Right.
important thing? So the input fields, like I need the race date, I need the horse I was on, course conditions, and
Mm-hmm.
then my time, or time, my first time, my
Mm-hmm.
second time, my third time. And you might want to say, hey, who won? What was the winning time? So
Yeah.
my benchmarks. So start by building out the assets
Yeah.
now. Like you can, and that's really cool to add to your community. Hey guys, here's version 1. This is the tracking app. The best thing you can do to improve performance is to track where you're at now. And then you yourself use the tool, because you don't want to be doing that like in the app development. You want to know, okay, here's the metrics that we
Mm-hmm.
have to report. And then like the dashboard's like, hey, your race performance, like, your average finish is 8th. The seconds behind, like then you'll have that. So start by creating a Google Sheet.
Okay.
Then the second thing, like your second priority is, okay, you want to have that community aspect where they can do outreach or call
Mm-hmm.
somebody. So the second thing, I would start researching who's doing that well. Um, like the
Yeah.
teen helpline
Yeah.
is an example. Suicide prevention, like what, and then what is it? What did they do well that worked? And I'll be honest, those would probably be really cool interviews for your podcast. And just say, hey, I'm thinking of doing this thing. I also have a podcast. I want to get your feedback on what works, what didn't, so that when I build my app, these are things that I can
Mm-hmm.
include. And the cool part about what happens when you start to share the journey more publicly about what you're trying to build, it's amazing who comes to you and who shows up in your life. Like, it's that law of attraction working in full force. Like, oh, you know what? You may have an app company that reach out that, has a soft spot for mental health, and they go in on the project with you. And that's one of the biggest things that we've always talked about is when you focus on making an impact and you do the actions that push you in that way, the money follows.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not about the money, it's about giving back to the community in this aspect.
Yeah.
You need the money to make the reach and the impact further, but I think those small steps, like instead of trying to figure out how to build an app, build the tools that go into the app, and then it's easier to include them when you're ready.
Exactly.
But you can use the community to figure out, oh yeah, this is cool. What's missing? What do we need to add? Because it's really expensive to make and change an app. But if you can define the tools beforehand, you're good to go. And you may get halfway down the road and they may say like, yeah, I don't want an app. Like this is all I need. This works. Right. Then it might just be more of a membership site with some type of group component where that Google Sheets are all they ever need.
True. So for like the Google Sheet, that would be kind of like almost journal entries of following like what they've done.
Yeah. Like if you were to track your race progress,
yeah,
I would just you make the template, but what would you create across the board? Like I'd imagine you'd have the race date, the race venue, conditions, and then your horse, like, because some people may have one or two.
Yeah.
And then literally just your first time, second time, third time. You'd want to know the winning time, the winning horse.
Yeah.
And then maybe some notes. What was your mindset before? Like you could refine it. Like, did I follow my pre-race routine? What was my mindset like? Did I go through my checklist? Like, because in your course, you go through those disciplines like mind, body, preparation. So integrate your training into the checklist.
Yeah.
And then you'll start to see the trends. Because remember, you and I had talked about it, I think before it was with Marshmallow, we talked about like, what's that one thing you needed to do? And I think it was barrel one.
It was the approach.
Yeah. So the approach.
I'll let the approach. Yeah.
Right. So you locked in, it's like, if I focus on the approach, so you're like, you changed what you would think about before each race. Like, okay, if I do this approach right, the outcome's better. So same things, like then you start to see, okay, I'm going to develop my own framework for success using this tool. Right. And your community following the same process you did to be successful. Like, so what were the results after you started focusing on that?
Yeah, it was a lot more clarity and I felt not as overwhelmed and I was able to perform better because I wasn't thinking of a million things I had to do. I was just very focused on myself and the few things that I could focus on better to know that I would do better. And I did.
Yeah. So just that exact, didn't you have your fastest time? I remember you texting me like you won. I think you finished first and fourth.
I did. Yeah. I got first. And then my mom also did really well. She got second. And then some other girl, and then I got fourth. So it was pretty awesome. It was like a takeover.
I still have the text where you took a screenshot of the race results, but that's what I mean. So before you get way down the road with an app, you can already give them a tool that's going to make a massive impact in their results. But then it's also going to give you something that you can build into the future.
Yeah.
And trust me, I've been there. Like, it's so easy to make the mistake of, you want to leap ahead to this future state where things are perfect and you've got like the premium business. Everyone misses the work, like getting there.
Yeah, exactly. That's the one. I was gonna say like the one mindset thing where I'm always thinking, oh, future Shelby's gonna be there. Like we're gonna have this happen, all this stuff. And then like me now, I'm like, yeah, but what am I actually doing literally today to like go through the journey and the process of getting there? Yeah. But I always just imagine like, oh yeah, like when I'm done school, like I'll be like this, but I never actually like, like went through the actual process like fully kind of thing. Yeah. So
Yeah, but honestly, see right now, just creating that sheet, that's something you can do today. Like you could do that right when we get off the call.
I probably will.
Like, but that bringing that back to your community, like the value everybody's going to get from that,
Yeah.
you don't need an app yet.
Yeah.
And you may go through like, hey, just tracking just this information alone is what the app needs to be. The second idea of
Mhm.
like the mental health and the outreach, that may be just something separate.
Yeah.
And that may be something that you can do that's really cool in conjunction with a partner, just bringing awareness and bringing like just bring that tool that already exists into it,
Mhm.
and just give your community access to that tool. Because if your end goal, like it's all mental health driven, right? Like you just want people to have access to,
Well, in that, like, you mean in like the whole app?
yeah. Like,
No.
or if it's even coaching, like a coaching community,
Yeah. Yeah.
like figure out the core app and then figure out like the secondary third things, like if you want to
Mhm.
access and then look at models. So let's just say you have the performance app. That's one thing. Let that do that one thing.
Mhm.
So we just got a puppy and there's an app called Good Pup, which is a training app where you get a 30-minute coaching call once a week with your dog trainer. And like you can, text them everything. I'd be looking at apps like that and saying, how can I apply that to solve the problem you're trying to do with access to coaching, like those
Yeah.
kinds of things.
Exactly.
So rather than reinvent the wheel, but those are two different things, right? Like make sure you don't overcomplicate the whole thing
Yeah.
and then figure
That's
out, okay, like it has to usually solve one problem. Like the dog training, like I want to train my dog.
true.
Now, like your performance and analytics, they may all marry together, but start with the tool, get feedback on, hey, does this tracking work? Is this tracking getting the results? And
Mhm.
then figure, okay, now I want to take the Good Pup coaching model and put these two together. Okay, that's the app I want to build.
Mhm.
But
Right.
solve the core problem first, which you're already doing like with your program, with your community. And if you just give them these tools to test if they really work, it's going to
Mhm.
make building the app so much easier.
This is true. Yeah.
You
That's
pumped up
actually a
again?
good point. Pardon?
You pumped up again?
I am.
Good.
But I'm still like, oh, no, no, that like makes it a lot more clear kind of, and just, you know, like you said, like doing things today that actually will help in the future when this would hopefully come and
Yeah.
become a thing. Yeah. So yeah, that makes sense. It's
It's a common thing. I'm guilty of it. I do it all the time. Like I want to jump ahead to like what's the next big thing look like. And it's just it takes the discipline to just, okay, I'm here. I want to get to here. What are the steps necessary to get there? And then
Mhm.
what am I going to sacrifice in that process?
Mhm.
And
That's
then you
true.
just make the decision if you're willing to or not.
Yeah.
It's an oversimplification, but I would try to keep those decisions that simple.
Mhm.
And then just figure out if they're the path you're on. Like I think the app's a genius idea. I think you should go down the route, but I would just start with what you have and where you're at today.
Mhm. And just definitely, like, I've been thinking of it, something you told me a while ago that has helped just clarify, and just because like I'm doing it on my own, it's not like I have someone to like, other like I have you, and I mean this is new for like, it's a new, totally new venture for myself, but like it's not like I can just like, that's why I like having Katie around, because if I'm
Yep.
feeling like it's all on me, where I really feel sometimes you just get in that mindset where you need someone to remind you almost of why you're doing this, like what is like, and it goes back to like the basics of like, why'd you even start, like why, just to keep going. And you told me a while ago of just, have that one statement, like the one thing that you always remind yourself, like you want to help 1,000 entrepreneurs. And like for me, it was, why am I doing this? And like I want to be able to help people and, get a better bond with their horse or whatever. And just always kind of like I've been reminding myself this week of that, of kind of to help me get
Yep.
back and like back on track and get where I was a week ago when I messaged you all pumped up, and just kind of reminding myself of like the one little one liner of why I'm doing this.
I
So,
would tell you that like that exercise, getting really clear on that made everything I do in life easier to
Mhm.
understand. And there are times like I started to ignore it. And that's when I would get off track. I'd get frustrated. I'd get depressed. And
Yeah.
like going back to like the why you do all this stuff is so powerful. And honestly, I would write it down. I would have it in every room that you go in.
Mhm.
And when you're
Yeah.
struggling, just like, oh yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
Like, and then like for you, like then the things that trigger start to be like, you know, like you start to actually feel the emotion of what your bond is like with your horse.
Mhm.
And then you start to know, like, if I can create that bond with other people, like those people are happier. Like it's
Yeah.
just a multiplier and it's
Yeah.
exponential.
Yeah, exactly. It is super powerful. And I've realized that. And that's why, like, this week I've been trying to, like, tell myself and just keep reminding myself of just that. And it's definitely helped. Like, it has made a big difference. So,
I would say like, but for you, even just like when you have bad long days, just go ride your horse. Like go do
legit.
that thing. That's the closest to your why, which for you is the
Yeah.
bond with your horse. I think so many people will get caught up in their business that they start to destroy or neglect the things that made them the happiest.
Mm-hmm. They're
And it,
too, yeah.
yeah,
Sorry, go on.
no, well, good.
Yeah. But yeah,
Awesome. Was that helpful?
that was helpful. That
Good.
was just, that's what I need. Like, I opened up a fresh sheet of paper and I'm like, I'm gonna have a chat with Doug and I'm gonna, just even like the structuring of things and like putting it on paper is something I struggle with because I'm like all things up there. And then yeah, I've been trying to get better at planning and even like the whole, so like even just online and social media, like I haven't, this week has been pretty slow for me. And that's just one of my personal challenges that it's like just who I am. It's just not my
Yeah.
strong suit. So, yeah, it was good just to kind of write it all out and look at it and actually have it in some sort of organized fashion, which is not how I operate usually.
I'm a
So,
visionary too. You've seen my life the past like, well, 18 months. Same
yeah,
way. Like that is the blessing and the curse of being a visionary is that like you will get lots of ideas. So just getting the discipline of getting it down, simplifying,
organized.
like, okay, I start here and get to here, just small
Yep.
steps.
Yep, exactly. That's probably going to be like my lifelong battle that I face, but that's
Yeah.
okay. So, yeah, that was
Awesome.
good.
Well, send me the sheet later once you've done it. Cause now I will go. Now this is the fun part of holding you accountable and just being like, okay, where's the sheet? Let's see it.
Come on.
Yeah.
I will. I'll get it done.
Awesome. Have an awesome weekend.
Thank you, you too, Doug.
See you, Shelby.
Bye.